With that, he pushes hard and manages to move whatever was on top of him. He is completely shocked when he looks at his own hand. Freaking out, he touches his head and feels a very weird texture. Then he stays silent, trying to process the situation in the middle of a dark cave. Looking at his reflection in a puddle of water, the MC complains loudly about the bizarre form he has taken. Trying to find some explanation, he starts to force his memory to remember what he was doing before. He remembers he was having an intimate moment accompanied by a beautiful girl. Then he realizes he partied a little too hard until his game was over, respawning right after as a mushroom monster. He gets furious with the situation, yelling that this way it will be impossible to get any girls and demands his face back. Suddenly someone calls for Xingbao, which seems to be his new name. Another little mushroom creature approaches him in the cave. The MC's eye widens when he hears the soft voice. Immediately, his mind creates an image of an absurdly attractive woman with that tone of voice. Xingbao's eyes sparkle with passion, thinking he found a gorgeous girl in this disgusting dungeon. Anxious about the possibility, he even gulps. But as he focuses his vision in front of him, sad reality knocks on the door. The little creature, which is just a cute faceless mushroom, asks why he is saying so many weird things today. Frustrated, Xingbao realizes it was just his own desperation imagining things. With that, he questions what mushroom men usually say. His companion promptly demonstrates the routine, yelling that there are intruders and they must eliminate them. Xingbao is startled by the sudden change in attitude. Without thinking twice, the little monster runs like crazy, warning about the enemies. At that moment, a giant foot stomps hard on the stone floor. A huge orc takes a deep breath, getting ready for the imminent battle. Behind him, the archer orc asks if the two of them can handle it without a healer, but the big guy guarantees the monsters there are weak and clueless. The little mushroom jumps toward them, repeating his standard attack phrase. With a single brutal strike of his club, the orc easily smashes the creature against the floor. The warrior brags about being right, while his partner celebrates that they are going to clear the dungeon fast again. Right behind them, a whole army of little mushrooms advances, repeating the same reckless threat. Taking advantage of the momentum, the big guy swings his weapon, taking down several monsters at once. Xingbao watches from afar as pieces of his kind fly around and gets terrified. Outraged, he asks why his species simply charges to their demise, instead of running away from danger. The mushroom next to him explains that they are just programmed characters and don't have the same freedom as the players. The MC gets confused, thinking players should be humans, but his partner confesses he doesn't know anything beyond his fixed voice lines. A heavy attack hits the ground very close to where they are talking. With the impact, it dawns on Xingbao and he quickly turns around. In the background, the archer orc already has his arrow drawn, ready to shoot in their direction. Terrified, the MC yells a bad word and dashes in the opposite direction, telling his buddy to run. But the little creature stays planted in the same spot without moving a muscle. The little monster just keeps looking at the wall, seeming to accept his cruel fate. Xingbao turns his face outraged and tells him to run away once and for all. Resignedly, his ally states that running away isn't part of their programming. Not accepting this, the MC reaches out his hand in an act of desperation to try and save him. When Xingbao's hand touches his companion, the little monster's body starts glitching weirdly with interference. Ignoring the visual system anomaly warnings, he grabs his partner, stating he doesn't care about the darn programming. The little creature yells his friend's name, shocked by the rebellious attitude. Holding his companion under his arm, Xingbao runs for his life, declaring that surviving is the priority. The archer orc notices the escape and finds the situation bizarre, but the warrior guesses it must be some glitch in the game and promises to report it later. Excited for the hunt, the big guy decides to chase the two runaway mushrooms, while his partner warns he is going to log out of the match to report the bug. Hiding behind a rock, the MC laments that his species was created without weapons. Very carefully, he peeks at the scenery around him to check the situation. He is amazed to find a huge treasure chest leaning against the wall. Thrilled with the idea of finding some defense, he approaches the object, ignoring the rule that it's exclusive to the game's heroes. His companion immediately tries to warn him that they can't interact with the environment's items. As soon as Xingbao touches the lock, the system triggers multiple red data anomaly alerts again. The chest's lid is thrown back with a strong impact, releasing its contents. The little mushroom watches, enchanted, wondering how his brother changed so much to the point of breaking the world's sacred rules. While his partner reflects, the MC rummages through the items, amazed by the amount of good stuff available. At that moment, an arrow cuts through the air at high speed towards their backs. In an unexpected reflex, his companion jumps in front, claiming he doesn't know why he did it, since saving allies isn't in his settings. His ally states he won't let anyone hurt his brother Xingbao. The metallic tip brutally hits a surface, emitting intense purple sparks. Using a huge shield taken from the chest, the little mushroom manages to deflect the fatal attack successfully. But the celebration is short-lived, as the enemy archer warns that the second shot is already on the way. A massive spell comes down, cutting the wind with scary power towards the ground. The absurd force of the strike causes a huge explosion right where the little monsters were taking shelter. From the top of the cliff, the orc watches the dust settle at the bottom of the destroyed ravine. He is in disbelief when he realizes a low-level monster managed to dodge his lethal attack. The frustration is clear on the shooter's face after being defied in such a ridiculous way. He looks at the violated chest and realizes the creatures did something completely impossible within the game's code. Sweating cold from the surprise, the player concludes that the system error is much worse than he imagined. Somewhere else, the guy who is playing with the warrior meets up with a hooded figure in the forest to report the problem. He indignantly questions how such an old dungeon still has severe glitches like this. The mysterious admin replies that maintenance flaws are inevitable over time, and it's no surprise that small bugs start popping up in the system. The admin system screen explains that the dungeon was created for heroes to farm resources and pass the time. Annoyed, the archer orc readies a glowing arrow, guaranteeing he will fix this error himself. The dangerous shot descends at high speed, tearing through the air toward the MC. Showing unexpected agility, Xingbao manages to dodge the attack at the last second. Watching from above, the enemy is impressed to note that the creature's base stats are very good. Giving him no room to breathe, a real rain of energy arrows starts falling over the area. Using the wooden lid of the chest as a defense, the little monster blocks the explosions while backing away. Hiding behind the box, he tries to come up with a plan to get closer, since he has very short legs for running. Right then, he notices a broadsword lying among the items of the destroyed chest. Without hesitating, the little mushroom firmly grabs the weapon's hilt. With a quick movement, he drags the heavy blade across the stone floor. From up high, the orc can't believe a simple monster knows how to use a chest lid as a shield. Readying another heavy shot, he analyzes that the target's actions are completely going off script. The MC keeps deflecting the attacks masterfully, generating intense sparks. Shocked, the enemy finally deduces that the little creature moves exactly like a real player. Willing to put an end to the problem, the shooter unleashes a gigantic destructive spell straight at the target. A violent boom echoes along with red splashes scattered through the dust. The screen announces the first enemy takedown, unlocking for Xingbao a network of racial skills for his species. The MC breathes a sigh of relief, concluding that his bizarre reincarnation also earned him a system of his own. Immediately, the little monster activates his newly acquired mushroom planting technique. He places his glowing hand directly onto his defeated companion's wounds. Thin pink roots begin to spread, absorbing the properties of the fallen body on the ground. An intoxicating sensation of pleasure takes over him as he absorbs the vital nutrients. Fully recovered, Xingbao turns his face, focusing his attention on the other side of the cave. Staring at the giant warrior's remains, he promises it's his turn to return his friend's sacrifice. Focusing the energy in his hands, he activates the parasitic planting skill again. An intense pink aura expands, creating bright sparks across the scenery. The magic filaments dive mercilessly into the fallen big guy's back. An absurd pillar of light rises from the body, draining all the enemy's remaining vital force. Inside that whirlwind of raw energy, the silhouette of a stunning woman begins to take shape. The smoke clears, revealing the new pink servant standing in the center of the light. Completely in love, Xingbao drools with admiration seeing the figure in front of him. The subordinate shows off enviable curves in an elegant dress, classified by the system as a level 2 archer. Kneeling respectfully, she greets her master and humbly asks him to grant her a name. A game notification confirms the cultivation of his first minion and requires identity registration. Scratching his chin, he remembers that monsters of their race usually don't have proper names. Suddenly, the MC's brilliant mind lights up with a perfect idea. Super proud of his invention, he decrees that the beautiful girl will be named Seifeng. She accepts the baptism right away and eagerly asks which challenge they will clear next. Ruining the mood, Xingbao reminds her that they aren't exploring heroes, but part of the environment. Full of mischief, he decrees that the top priority right now is to hunt down the remaining player in the dungeon. Meanwhile, the giant enemy's body dissolves into clean bones. Far from there, the archer orc lands heavily, breaking the rocks of the canyon. Analyzing the debris, the player thinks it's crazy his partner got eliminated by the most useless creature in the game. Confused by the unlikely situation, he concludes it can only be an elite monster hidden on the map. Excited by his deduction, the big guy predicts the hunt will yield rare and valuable items. Using a brutal charge skill, he runs like a bulldozer, smashing everything in his path. Xingbao waits with the sword in his hands, watching the furious brute coming right at him. A crushing axe strike shatters the ground while the little mushroom jumps back, dodging it. The sharp blade just grazes him, making a small red streak fly from the enemy's arm. Tense with the result, the MC realizes this guy's stamina is a much bigger problem. Consumed by rage, the warrior is offended for being injured by such a weak character. Aware of his disadvantage in close combat, Xingbao turns his back and runs along the rocky walls. Blinded by anger, the big guy goes after him, huffing with hatred through the narrow tunnels. The chase leads to a deep cave river crossed by a fragile wooden bridge. The hunter steps hard, breaking the planks in his out-of-control path. Suddenly, he brakes sharply before fully advancing onto the damp platform. Far away, the little monster waits, standing calmly on top of a smooth rock surrounded by water. The giant suspects a trap due to the sudden pause, but quickly underestimates the machine's intellect. To provoke him once and for all, Xingbao raises his middle finger, making a very human and insulting gesture. The player completely loses it at the humiliating mockery. Screaming that he's going to turn him into paste, he jumps furiously with his weapon ready to slice the enemy. The exaggerated force of the jump ends up completely destroying the wooden structure under his feet. Flying through the cave's air, the monstrous silhouette gains altitude, ready to crush the tiny target. The attack hits thin air, shattering the rock and raising a huge wall of water. Confused by the impact, the big guy looks around desperately, trying to find the mushroom that vanished. Right behind him, the river's surface explodes, revealing the hiding spot. Falling to the bottom of the pond, the warrior complains about the monster's cowardice in using stealth attacks. From his high ground advantage, Xingbao mocks him, reminding him that the opponent dropped his weapon and can barely move in the heavy water. With victory in his hands, he kicks a sharp seed, cutting through the air toward the lake. The small blade pierces the brute's shoulder, who just laughs at such mediocre damage. The laughter dies in his throat when an arrow brutally pierces his chest from behind. With no time to react, another fast shot travels gliding over the surface of the dark river. The impact goes deep into the giant's flesh, painting the water with a dark trail. Coughing heavily, the enemy is in absolute shock, demanding to know who on earth is shooting. With zero mercy, one more arrow pierces the big guy's chest, spreading critical damage everywhere. With the fatal impact, the warrior completely loses his strength and sinks into the river's dark waters. On the riverbank, Seifeng lowers her bow, confirming that the enemy's rage effect is finally over. Only a small mushroom is left floating on the stained surface, proving the orc's defeat. With that, the MC jumps excitedly onto the stone floor, announcing that it's his turn to shine. He quickly extends his hands over the fallen body, absorbing all the remaining vital energy. A bright pink light wraps around the creature's silhouette, while the system notifies him of a form change. Right after, a small mushroom sprout magically pops up from the cave's damp floor. Super proud, Xingbao celebrates, relieved to have finally gotten his handsome human looks back. However, his minion's eyes widen in utter shock, asking what in the world is dangling right there. It turns out her master is jumping for joy in his birthday suit right in front of the girl. Startled, the guy quickly improvises, using an axe handle to cover up his modesty. Meanwhile, the panel notifies him that he leveled up and copied the opponent's rage skill. Already walking down the tunnel, he asks how to get out of there, and his partner explains they need to climb floor by floor. Curious about the info, the MC immediately asks why the newbies get to enter straight at the bottom. The archer calmly explains that players have privileges to choose where to start. Intrigued, the guy points out asking how she knows that, and the girl reveals she used to listen to the conversations before. Without losing focus, the MC decides they are going to fight their way to the top of the dungeon. Walking through the rocky corridors, the duo ends up at a somewhat dark crossroads. Analyzing the path, the minion points out that the left leads to the slimes, and the right goes to the graveyard. He then tells his companion to go hunt the jellas to gain experience, while he investigates the other side. She doesn't understand his interest in the graveyard, but the master guarantees that will be their territory in the future. Now wearing some old clothes he found on the way, the guy walks alone through the silent tunnels. He smells something really strong in the air, and concludes that the rotten odor makes perfect sense for the location. Looking at the cave ceiling, he notices that a bunch of remains and trash get dumped straight down from a hole. A massive area full of bones and remains reveals itself before the explorer's eyes. Digging through the pile of old bones, he believes he can still find some good nutrients hidden in there. The search pays off right away, finding a broken flask with leftovers of a large magic potion. Right next to it, the guy also finds a dark puddle containing a mix of tar and rotten dirt. On top of that, he manages to locate a torn-up magic book tossed among the remains in the graveyard. With his hand glowing, the guy calculates that he still has room to cultivate one more battle minion. Instantly, a colossal whirlwind of pink energy erupts from the ground, sweeping away all the dirt around it. The magical pressure is so intense that the stone floor starts cracking violently under the wind. From the smoke emerges a little mushroom monster with flames on its head, classified by the system as a pyromaniac. Evaluating the result, Xingbao finds the new creature pretty intimidating, despite being very short. Suddenly, the MC notices a suspicious light glowing behind his back and goes on high alert. By pure instinct, he turns his body quickly as electric sparks fill the air. A gigantic blue lightning bolt hits the ground, blowing up everything exactly where the guy was standing. After dodging the surprise attack, he cautiously watches the threat emerging from the depths of the shadows. It's a huge electric snail, recognized by the system as the great dominator of that floor. Understanding that the beast is fighting for the same food, the master orders his new minion to jump into action. Wasting no time, the little mushroom charges a glowing sphere, firing it at the target. The attack tears through the cave's air, leaving a scorching trail of smoke toward the giant insect. However, the Dominator quickly shrinks into its shell, using its electric aura as a protective shield. The brutal impact of the fireball against the barrier creates an absurd explosion, lighting up the entire dungeon. A dense cloud of dust rises on the battlefield, hiding the outcome of the scorching hit. But the enormous snail pushes through the curtain of smoke, looking like it barely took any damage. Showing off its power, the beast fires a brutal electric blast toward the tiny flaming creature. Using a swift dash skill, the minion jumps away, successfully dodging the destructive beam. Watching everything from above, Xingbao concludes that the enemy's slow speed is an easy weakness to exploit. Taking advantage of this, the fire monster jumps nimbly, shooting more flames at the heavy opponent. The superheated sphere lands a direct hit right on top of the giant's tough shell without any mercy. A new firestorm consumes the target, creating a boiling crater in the middle of the scattered rocks. Completely cornered by the flames, the snail retreats into its natural hideout, trembling nonstop. The charred shell starts making weird cracking sounds, letting out a lot of smoke through the main opening. From the top of the cliff, the guy orders his minion to move in fast and check the beast's damage. He tells the little guy to stop stalling and quickly verify if the danger has been completely neutralized. But as it gets closer, the little creature backs away terrified upon noticing an intense blue light leaking from the structure. In a surprising burst, the beast ejects its own heavy shell, propelling its body outward. Now without the extra weight, the electric slug glides across the floor at terrifying speed toward the wall. With an acrobatic leap, the MC barely manages to dodge the deadly charge that cracked the floor. Spinning his heavy weapon in the air, he laughs, mocking the speedy monster's failed attempt. The fun ends quickly when an electric beam scrapes dangerously close to his face. The giant slug starts zigzagging frantically around the guy, leaving trails of lightning everywhere. Dodging the endless strikes, Xingbao taunts the beast, saying it's still as slow as a garden snail. Countering the mockery, the opponent speeds up even more, crossing the space in a scary fraction of a second. The creature starts bouncing off the cave walls, creating an impossible web of blue discharges. Sweating cold from the constant pressure, the master admits that losing your own house really does make anyone lighter. Tearing through the wind with total fury, the monster aims straight at the MC for a final attack. Showing absolutely no fear, the guy just flashes a confident smile in the shadows of the dungeon. From the enemy's blind spot, the flame monster jumps, perfectly intercepting the trajectory midair. The little creature unloads a massive fireball at point-blank range right into the electric beast's face. The absurd clash between the pyromaniac magic and the lightning charge creates a heavy distortion in the graveyard. Safely on top of the rock, Xingbao bursts out laughing, teasing that the bug will never be able to hit him. He calmly watches the sea of flames sweep the bottom of the abyss, securing another crushing victory. Laughing in the MC's face, the speedy monster mocks him, saying their speeds don't even come close and he missed his target by a mile. But the guy fires back with total calm, stating he never misses an attack since he wasn't even aiming at the beast to begin with. Immediately, the cave ceiling starts collapsing, sending a shower of heavy rocks falling straight down on the electric creature. Realizing the strategy of causing a cave-in, the slug still tries to brag, guaranteeing those boulders won't hit it. With its absurd agility, the monster zigzags through the air, easily dodging the gigantic rocks crashing down from the dark ceiling. Right then, the MC activates his class's rage and charge skills at the same time, getting wrapped in an intense red aura. The snail notices the weird movement in the middle of the destruction and shifts its focus to figure out what's going on over there. Thinking the enemy is using the heavy smoke screen as a hiding spot, the floor dominator remains pretty confident. It spots the little fire minion advancing and arrogantly declares it can still dodge any attack from that shorty. Without warning, Xingbao comes flying from above with his improvised club and lands a devastating blow, smashing the bug into the ground. Completely shocked by the brutal hit, the monster struggles to believe there was a surprise attack hidden inside another one. The force of the impact is so insane that it buries the electric enemy straight into the stone floor, kicking up a giant cloud of dust. As the smoke clears, the master calmly looks at the massive dark crater that formed in the center of the ruined graveyard. Reaching his hand out to the hole, he uses his racial skill to absorb all the nutrients left by the opponent's remains. A refreshing energy surrounds the guy's body while the system announces he leveled up and learned a new handy technique. Taking advantage of the electric spoils, the MC manages to cultivate a new creature using the newly acquired properties. The result is a little bright blue mushroom minion that overflows with an aura loaded with static energy all over its body. Beside it, the pyromaniac monster also gets an upgrade, evolving into an ethereal state dominated by intense flames. Quite satisfied with his private army, the guy orders the two to clean up the mess fast so they can set up the group's base right there. Looking down the dark tunnel, he wonders how his archer minion is doing, since it's been a while since she gained any experience. Far away in the jelly area, the scenery is completely covered with green remains scattered across every corner of the rocky floor. With her bow held tight, Seifeng glares at the leader of that floor, asking if he was the one who used her subordinates as targets. A gooey, colossal creature rises in front of the warrior, blocking the passage with its grotesque body full of glowing holes. Curious, the Slime King brings his slimy face closer, evaluating the girl up close, with a slight feeling he has seen her before. Breaking the ice, a quick and accurate shot ends up getting completely lodged in the monster's green forehead while it wasn't paying attention. Totally offended by the aggressive move, the giant grumbles that the girl was very rude for interrupting his speech halfway through. Ignoring the complaint, the warrior jumps back nimbly, firing a relentless volley of arrows at the colossal enemy. The metallic tips hit the target's surface dead on, but end up being swallowed by the gelatinous texture without doing any real damage. With a mocking tone, the beast warns that making little holes in it is useless and advances, stretching a part of its body to strike. The heavy tentacle whips the dungeon floor with impressive force, kicking up a thick curtain of dust and rocks. The gooey king brags about not being weak like his henchmen, stating that physical attacks just make him lose a bit of fluid at most. To prove his point, the creature simply absorbs moisture from the stone floor, regenerating any flaw in its sticky structure. Feeling that victory is already in the bag, the giant raises its mass threateningly over the girl and tells her to meet her end once and for all. Without hesitation, a massive pillar of pure slime descends, tearing through the air at brutal speed, ready to crush the opponent right there. In an extremely fast move, the minion jumps back, dodging the demolishing strike by just a few millimeters. Halting its own aggressive advance, the monster appears completely shocked by something happening within its own base. The gelatinous structure begins to melt and collapse on its own in a bizarre way, leaving the leader clueless about the glitch in its body. Noticing tiny sprouts growing inside its green mass, the beast panics, demanding to know where those things came from. The parasitic fungi start spreading aggressively inside the creature, draining all the vital nutrients from that being. Desperate, the king notices that the fungi even sprouted on the ground beneath him, completely drying up the underground water in the area. The gooey giant tries to search his memory for the exact moment he got infected by this silent plague that is now destroying his strength. It instantly clicks when he realizes tiny spores were hidden on the tips of the arrows fired since the very beginning. Realizing the dirty trick, he remembers with hatred the little monster in the pink hat shortly before turning into a useless puddle behind the archer. As a reward for the successful takedown, a dark, valuable piece of horn drops all by itself in the middle of the mess left on the floor. Very proud of her victory, Seifeng receives system notifications informing her that she unlocked the magic shooting technique. Following her master's orders, the warrior uses her magic bag to store the hard horn while absorbing the rest of the remains. Far away in the graveyard, the MC feels a huge wave of energy rush through his body, noticing his experience went up really fast. His little elemental minions also benefit from the shared level up, getting even stronger for the upcoming challenges. Just then, Seifeng lands gracefully, handing the valuable item over to the guy, commenting that she thought he'd need help with the cleanup. Analyzing the horn carefully, Xingbao praises the quality of the material, but wishes they had a blacksmith in the group to craft weapons. The girl quickly suggests going out to hunt for an artisan out there, and the leader points upward, guaranteeing his new skill will be perfect. Touching the dungeon floor, the guy decides to scan the entire area looking for living players or fallen ones who have that talent. A massive network of glowing roots begins to expand swiftly across the territory, scanning every corner of that maze. Quickly, the natural radar picks up a promising signal, sending an alert straight to the MC's mind about the exact location. Looking in the direction of the signal, he spots a bright flash crossing the underground darkness and deduces it must be hunters battling over there. It turns out a group of armed humans cornered a dwarf blacksmith in a cave, demanding he surrender to work for them. Completely revolted by the cowardly threat, the prisoner prefers going offline over becoming a slave, recalling that his people were exploited to the bitter end. Out of patience for rebellion, the bluish brute of the gang steps forward with his blade raised, declaring that the old geezer is going to be taken out right there. 285.